have the opportunity with my colleagues here to talk about the human catastrophe of Sudan that is still unfolding. For many years, I worked as a human rights lawyer in Darfur, taking cases related to pushing accountability in the local courts. I went to court regularly in Al-Fasher, defending hundreds of cases for victims. Now, however, the city lies in ruins and its population is being subjected to horrible human rights violations, although a full assessment of the damage will likely take some time, especially in the context of the communications blackout affecting the city. There is already ample evidence of the horrific scale of the violence. The RSF themselves have posted videos of themselves killing masses of civilians, and satellite images show piles of bodies and pools of blood. Those who have made it out to Tawila are reported being shot at, kidnapped, and tortured on the way. Even the reported 70,000 that have arrived in Tawila are far fewer than what would have been anticipated given the numbers reported to have remained in the city. Those images of horror are particularly tragic because the signals of the tragedy were long in coming. Not only were there were warnings such as devastation that are likely to occur over the last 18 months during which Al-Fasher was under siege, especially given the atrocities committed against the city of Al-Jineina when it fell to the RSF earlier in the war. Atrocities that are being investigated by the ICC as we speak right now. It is also a continuation of the genocide in Darfur in the early 2000s. The RSF evolved out of the Janjaweed that were mobilized by the government to carry out the killing of the Darfuris. They were mobilized on the promise of being allowed to control the land if they clean it of the African indigenous tribe that inhabited it. They appear to be seeking to complete that work now, as the Sudanese armed forces have done little to defend Al-Fasher or the rest of the land. As horrific as the images coming out of Al-Fasher, even more devastation could follow, as killings appear to continue in Al-Fasher. Fighting is continuing in the Kurdufan areas and cities such as Ubaid, Dalan, Kadukli, etc. are seeing the similar siege tactics as Al-Fasher faced. If action, though less visible right now, the Sudan Armed Force are committing also violations of their own, carrying out arbitrary arrests of suspected RSF supporters in the areas under their control and carrying out indiscriminate shelling. Now is the time to act. More specifically, this action should focus on 3 key pillars: protection of the civilians, negotiation for peace, and again, the third one is justice and accountability. First, the people of Darfur had indeed all of Sudan are in need of urgent protection, despite the horrors of Al-Fasher. And the people also call for ceasefire, respect for humanitarian, respect for international humanitarian law. There has been no concrete action ensuring protection of the civilians up to this moment. Civilians, after the UN Security Council was briefed on the horrors unfolding in a fashion, they could not muster even a presidential statement in response, much less a resolution requiring clear action. Nearly 20 years ago, the UN Security Council supported first the AU mission in Darfur and then a joint UN-AU mission. Although it did not meet the full aspiration of the people of Darfur, it did for some protection. How or now the EU must explore what can be done to promote civilian protection in Darfur. This could include facilitating discussion in the Security Council. For example, the EU member, Slovenia, will preside over the Council in December. They could facilitate a discussion on this topic in the Council with a civilian Sudanese briefer. The EU could also initiate discussion with the AU about civilians' protection options that could be advanced by the AU and EU in cooperation. Ultimately, although civilian protection mechanism can be useful, only peace will allow for the real security for the people of Sudan, especially Darfur. The Quad statement on September 12 breathes new life into a stalled peace process and offers some hopeful signals of progress. Hopefully, it identified the need for a civilian future of the country saying it should establish, quoted, an independent civilian-led government with broad-based legitimacy and accountability. The statement also called for a quick ceasefire and an end to foreign support for the warring parties, which at present is facilitating the continuation of the war. My recommendation for the EU is to work closely with the AU and UN to explore ways of how to stop the war first, but two, how to urgently negotiate and discuss about stopping the horrors and atrocities through supporting the ICC, especially the Office of the Prosecutor for Darfur, and to facilitate its investigations about the atrocities that occurred in Al Jeneina, lately in Al Fashir, and all over the Sudan. That means also EU is, as I hope EU would closely work with the Sudan finding mission, that is FFC for Sudan, and it's good that Muna Rashmawi would address us shortly. Also, EU is I ask the EU also to review its position, political position sometimes, because the image of the EU in Sudan has been confusing the people. When one time some of the Sudanese were saying EU is siding with the RSF. That is a very, very worrying situation when the EU consider the RSF as a credible partner, asking the RSF to stop immigration towards Europe. That is worrying. EU also sided with the framework agreement when it was the RSF or the hub for political parties at that time. It's also something worrying. And again, EU is also must be careful to rectify its image in the eyes of the people of Sudan. You are sending huge money, but people don't see it. because the humanitarian access is impeded by the warring parties. The humanitarian services are not allowed to reach the people who need it. So it is not seen. I think EU should review policies how to address these areas of concern in a proper manner. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. As a Sakharov recipient of the European Parliament, I am proud that always you tell me to come, invite me to come, and just to reflect what is going on in Sudan, and especially in Darfur. EU is our ally. EU is, after the US administration stopped most of the humanitarian services, it is the responsibility of the EU to take over with other partners like the AU. Thank you very much.